Now let's take a look at the remarkable Thor synthesizer. Thor is a complex semi-modular synthesizer with a built-in sequencer. It has a modulation table that lets you define a variety of modulation sources and map them to parameters within Thor. The possibilities are endless and way beyond the scope of what we can discuss here, but I'll do my best to give you an overview of this magnificent synth. We'll start with the controller section, which is what you see when you open Thor. It's got your pitch bend and mod wheel controls, controls over polyphony, different keyboard playing modes, and different modes of portamento. Now remember, portamento is the sliding between notes. Thor lets me turn that on or off, or even make it automatic when I hold down a note. Let me show you what I mean quickly. So if portamento is off and I play two notes, this is what happens. If I turn it on, if I put it on auto and play distinct notes, but if I hold down the first note, so a couple options for portamento. The trigger section determines how notes are played in Thor. You can play them from your MIDI controller, from the built-in step sequencer, or both. And we'll talk about the step sequencer in the next video. And then lastly, there are two rotary knobs and two buttons that you can map to any control within Thor in the modulation table. We'll learn about that in the next video. Now to get under the hood of Thor, we have to show the programmer. And to do that, we click this button and we get the innards of Thor. The first of Thor's four sections is the oscillator section, where I can define oscillators and filters for each of my voices. Then there's a global section which affects all voices. Below that is a modulation table where I can map different sources of modulation to different destinations. And then finally, we have the step sequencer. This is a 16-step sequencer which can control notes and velocity and many other things. And we'll take a look at all these sections. To start with, let's look at the oscillator section. For each of the three oscillators, we can define different types of oscillators. We can define an analog oscillator with a couple different waveforms to choose from, a wave table, which lets me specify a type of wave and change the position, the starting position in the wave, phase modulation, which lets me combine copies of a wave in different ways, FM pair, which lets me use FM synthesis, multi-oscillator, which has multiple oscillators that can be detuned, and then finally, noise. Lots and lots of choices there, and remember we have three oscillators, each one can be completely different. I'm going to choose a wavetable oscillator, and we'll pick random sines. I can change the pitch of that. I can change the starting position in my wavetable. Now let's define a second oscillator. This one will be a simple analog wave, let's say a square wave. And I won't hear anything until I turn it on, which I do by clicking the 2 here. I can mix the balance between oscillators 1 and 2 and the overall volume. And then I have a separate volume control for oscillator 3. Once I go through the mixer, I go through 1 or 2 filters. And like the oscillators, I have many different filter types to choose from, each which can be tailored. I can go from filter 1 into a sound shaper, and I have a variety of controls over that sound shaper. And then from there, I can choose whether to go into a second filter or directly to my amplifier, where I can set the gain and panning. Then I have an LFO. There's one here for the separate voices. There's a second LFO in the global section, which affects all voices. I can define the type of waveform for the LFO. I can sync it to tempo. I can define the rate and the delay, how long it takes before the LFO kicks in. And then in my modulation table, which is down below, I can use that as one of the sources to modulate other parameters in my synth. And then I have three envelopes, like my other Reason synths: an amplifier envelope, which controls the amplitude of the sound, a modifier envelope, and a filter envelope. All of these can be mapped to different things in my modulation table. Up here I even have a loop control, which lets me keep repeating the envelope as a sound is sustained. And then finally I go into my global section, which is this brown area, and these are controls which affect all the voices in the sound. I have a final envelope here, a second LFO, another filter that I can use, and even two effects, a delay effect and a chorus effect. In the next video, we'll move on to the modulation section and the step sequencer.